Welcome to today's podcast. Today we'll be talking about how to use contextual marketing to sell more, whether you're a business owner, or a sales professional.
My name is Cornell Ladigan, co-founder of BizVideo. The purpose of this podcast is to take you on a journey of how we use story to grow our business. Thank you for joining me today.
Welcome to today's live. Today we'll be talking about how to use contextual marketing to sell more. Now, first of all, what the heck is contextual marketing? And that's exactly what I said yesterday when I was having a little conversation with my friend Russ on that couch over there. And we were talking about this thing called contextual marketing. And the thing is, Russ said in his words, contextual marketing is the right message at the right time to the right person. So this really made me think. And the thing is, I'm not very patient. You know, back in the day, if I get an idea, I just want to roll with it. I just want to get it done as soon as possible. So basically shoot and then aim. And the thing is, I didn't want to take the time, to create that specific message to that specific person. And I was actually questioning to myself, what kind of analogy can I use, right, to make sense of this for myself? So the way I figured that this would make sense to myself is, imagine I am talking to a prospect and then I'm talking to my mother, okay, in 5 minutes. So would I say the things that I will say to my prospect to my mum? Will my language, my tone, will the message be the same, or will it be completely different? And the same goes the other way around. Would I use the same tone, message, that I would use with my mum to the prospect? Probably not. The prospect will get freaked out. Now, I have to create, the thing is, a bit of conflict, right? I have to create all these different messages to all these different people. So our main focus is, our main industries and verticals that we focus on is the construction industry, it's technology and software, and then also the pet industry. And then also I would love to help more salespeople, so sales professionals, help them out by teaching them how to use story to sell more, right? To provide that value. So, and it's actually very similar to what I said in yesterday's podcast. I used a story that we were filming a case study for ourselves, and the client that we were interviewing at that time, he said to me on camera that you basically need multiple case studies for multiple people, for different people. You can't just have one case study that talks to everyone. You need a case study specific to this industry, to this person within that industry. Now, the trouble is, this will take a lot of time, right? So, how do you create multiple messages? And it's hard. This is not just me. I think a lot of businesses are actually struggling with this. A lot of sales professionals are struggling with this, because the thing is, they know they can help so many different people, but they're kind of stuck because they have to almost choose what marketing message they're actually going to be using, and what message are they going to use within that sales process. So the thing is, it's not just the verticals either. So it's not just different industries. It's actually, now we're starting to talk about different people in different roles within a company. So now we're talking about owners, CEOs, influencers, and if you have a specific message to a CEO, that'll be completely different to the influencer. And the thing is, we have a few case studies, we have a few content videos that are actually specific to those industries that will get them to understand what we're actually talking about and what value we can provide. So whenever I have a prospect, I go back to, and I use this analogy, I like to have a tool chest. So a case where I can go in and reach out, get a tool specifically for that person, right? So if I have a case study of a builder, and the prospect sitting in front of me, or the prospect I'm following up with, right, is in the software space, if I show that case study to him, to the software space, it just won't make any sense. So now this is the dilemma I have. The thing is, I want my prospect to actually understand what we're talking about, how we can actually help them, because I believe Russell Brunson actually says this: a confused mind says no. So if I confuse my prospect, naturally they'll just say no automatically. So they don't even have to think about it. It's only when you get really clear on that message to that specific person that it'll make sense to them. And again, now it makes sense. Now they can actually make an informed decision that it's actually going to help them. So even though the term contextual marketing, is new to me, the concept isn't. This has really made me, like this conversation I had with Russ yesterday, really made me think even more and put a lot more focus on this thing called contextual marketing, which is focusing on the right message at the right time to the right person. So the thing is, how can you as a business owner or even a sales professional, how can you use this information that I'm talking about now? Now the thing is, you could probably do the same thing that we, or run through the same process that we actually run our clients through. And one part of it is the story development session. Now I'm not going to map out the complete story development session in this podcast today because I just want to focus on this contextual marketing side of things. So 3 elements of the story development session that I want to focus on that might help you here is number 1, who is your audience, right? The second thing is, how do you want them to feel? And then the next thing is, what do you want them to do? So just brainstorm and map this out, bullet point that out, and that'll start making more sense to you. Now the thing is, I've got a whiteboard there just out of the shot, and I've mapped out those 4 verticals that I told you guys about before. And so I will, for each one, so I'll map out the different audiences, and then underneath those audiences, again, how do we want them to feel, right? So that might be inspired, or I want them to feel trust towards me. I want them to feel like, hey, there's actually opportunity here for me to grow as a business or as a salesperson. There's a opportunity for me to sell more software. You get the idea. And then the next thing is, what do we want them to do? Because the thing is, that do part is really important. And I'm not talking so much a call to action. This is more, the thing is, I believe that if you can get someone to feel something, that naturally they'll want to do something, right? So this is just where you want to map out for yourself, what do you want them to do? Because then your messaging will be aimed towards that person, creating value and getting them to do something without even telling them to do that thing. So, and why do we do all this, right? If you map that out, now you can start creating content and case studies specifically to those audiences. And now, where does the contextual marketing actually come in, right? I'm not going to go really too deep into this. This is not a technical episode, so to speak. It's more just to get you, give you some ideas from a strategic point. Once you've identified the audience, and what do you want them to feel and what do you want them to do, once you've created the case studies and the content video specifically to those audiences, now you can go put that in your little tool chest, right? And carry that around with you. And then when you need something, now let's say you're talking to a prospect that is in the pet industry, right? Let's say a pet food company or whatever. You can pull out a content video that is going to help them, that's going to be of value to them. And you can pull out a case study that will be there to both inspire them and build trust in you, the service provider or the person or the business that sells a product. And I'm just going to go back to the inspiring part. So case studies are really valuable because they inspire people. Because the reason why it inspires people is, if your prospect is sitting there watching this case study, it's almost like watching a movie, okay? The person watching relates to the character within that movie and can almost feel the same pain and challenges that character in the movie goes through. And they get hooked on that because the person watching wants to see how the story unfolds and how the character actually overcomes their problem and their conflict, right, to achieve what they want, what they desire. So it's the exact same thing. That's why the case studies are so important. It is very valuable for that third-party validation, right? So from a testimonial standpoint, but even more so, you can see it as content. You can see it as almost like entertainment, and get in the story, because the story is entertainment, and that is going to show the journey of this is what you could go through. You, the audience, you the person watching this video, this case study. So I hope that makes sense. I don't want to go too airy-fairy or creative here. I'm talking from a psychological point of view here. What do you want your different audiences to feel and what do you want them to do? So I hope you guys liked this podcast. If you did, please hit me back with a personal message or something, give me some feedback. I'd love to provide even more value. And if something didn't make sense, I would love to address it in the next episode. I hope you guys have a fantastic day. This podcast is now available on YouTube, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, and Spotify.